Hello everyone and welcome back to Strategy Sunday, Volume 4. This time we're taking a closer look at Winter Soldier out of the For King and Country set that was released, when was it? Almost a year ago, probably. Yeah. Um, so basic stats, we'll just run over them quickly as always because nothing changes very much right here. We have a Move 2 fighter with Winter Soldier with ranged and 15 HP, and Move 2 is average as always, it's nothing special. However, being ranged is nice, so you're a bit more safe against double attacks from melee fighters and so on, which definitely helps Winter Soldier in this case, but 15 HP as always, not so great. It's kind of average. The total health pool of 15 sucks because you don't have any sidekicks, and you have just the typical solo fighter issues where every attack will be directed at yourself, so that total health pool of 15 is even a bit worse than otherwise, and you have low board control, low presence, because you're only one fighter, you don't have any sidekicks to block some item tokens or anything else. And yeah, 12 unique cards should make the deck consistent, but in Winter Soldier's case, that's a bit of a different story. We'll take a look at the ability. Also, nothing too crazy here. It just says brainwashed effects on Winter Soldier's cards cannot be cancelled. Well, no effects cancel is great. That kind of makes feint at that card in almost every game because kind of like 3/4 of the decks have feint as a card or cards that are like feint that deal with effect canceling, and those become just blank values against you, which is really, really good. And yeah, it's just a good ability, but you'll see effects on your cards tend to be bad for you in some cases, but you have ways to play around that. However, it's not so important. Effect is still great. Alright, first card, Without Remorse. It's a 6 value attack with a boost value of 2 that says, with a star effect after combat, your opponent may draw one card. Okay, so we'll see with these star effects. Those are the effects that will usually be bad for you and typically have to do with your opponent or anything else that's kind of bad for you and good for them. However, 6 value attacks are still great. This is massive. And being able to throw this at ranged is really scary because it's kind of like Bigfoot's log, but you'll get it from ranged and it's oof. The effect can be pretty bad because you have low card draw on your own cards and no real way to escape pins because you don't have any after combat movement effects. So if you attack with this and your opponent plays something like a hoax or anything else that can move their fighter, so you maybe get pinned, then you also give them extra card draw. Can be bad, but I think it's most often worth it to throw a 6 value attack for one card draw. However, hand advantage matters a lot for Winter Soldier in his games because, like I said, he doesn't have any good reliable card draw on his combat cards. So giving your opponent even more of those can be bad, can lose you a game. Sometimes it's not so relevant, but yeah, be wary of that. Otherwise, really, really, really good card. Then we'll see Bionic Arm. It's a 2 value attack with a boost value of 1 that says during combat, if Winter Soldier is adjacent to the opposing fighter, the value of this card is 6 instead. And with a star effect, after combat, your opponent moves each of their fighters up to 5 spaces. Okay, so first of all, 2 value attacks are bad. They probably won't deal any damage, and are just kinda like bait. However, if you are adjacent with this card, this is a additional guaranteed 6 because remember, your effects can't be cancelled. So whenever you're adjacent to the opposing fighter, if they don't have any immediate movement effects or during combat, which are pretty rare, I don't know, are there even any? I can't remember now, but yeah, it's basically a guaranteed 6, which is massive. So technically you have six value attacks in your deck, without remorse, and that's basically like Angry Achilles, but always, and you can throw half of them at ranged, and it's really scary. However, the after combat effect will most often lead to you getting pinned. This effect is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, on the star effects. because, like I said, you don't have any reliable card draw and no way to escape pins yourself. So movement for your opponent is really, really bad. Um, it can basically just lead to bad things. They can guaranteed double attack you if they stay with their fighter or even move their second fighter in because they can move each of them. They could pin you, they could run away 5 spaces and gain cards if you should have hand advantage or pressure them down with your large attacks. This card, it's a great attack still. 6 value, great, but the after combat effect can really hinder your game plan sometimes and maybe also lose your games. So I would be a bit concerned when you want to play this card. Um, it's still great, but if you have low blocks in hand, or your opponent may have some card that draws them a bunch of cards, and then if you're up against someone like Raptors, I would almost never use this card actually, because giving Raptors additional ways to get you pinned is yeah. But I think you're getting the point. Be aware of your weaknesses and what your current hand is, but otherwise, great card. Then we have Program to Kill. It's a 4-value attack with a boost value of 2 that says star effect after combat. If you won the combat, take 2 damage. Okay, so 4-value attacks are usually good. Average block value is 3, so you will probably deal some damage and win combat. However, in this case, winning combat is the worst thing you could do, because the effect is goddamn awful. Like I said, average block value is 3, so you'll probably win with this 60-70% of the time. And dealing 1 damage to the opposing fighter and then taking 2 yourself is extremely bad. Remember, you only have 15 HP, and that's an abysmal trait. Even if you deal like 2 or more damage because your opponent fainted or played a regroup into this, it's probably still really bad because your opponent will probably have more HP than you, more ways to deal with that because they maybe have sidekicks or reliable healing in your deck, which I think I forgot to mention. Your healing is it can be pulled off, but it's really hard. And yeah, you taking 2 damage since you only have 15 HP is really bad. Typically, Winter Soldier games don't really last that long because you either get pressured down or you just die from high value attacks because you can't really deal with that too great. But yeah, take 2 damage is just abysmal. This is easily the worst card in the deck. Always boost it away, discard it if you have the chance. Whatever. Just don't play it. Never. Next up we have Marksman. It's a 1-value attack that says during combat add +1 to this card's value for each space between you and the opposing fighter along the shortest path. Okay, so 1-value attacks are bad. They're even worse than 2-value attacks. The effect is kinda interesting, but usually it doesn't bring this way higher than a 4 because zones tend to be not as long, but like more spreaded in a way if you're saying in a center that are like 2 spaces in each direction. So maybe you get 3 or 4 spaces between you and the opposing fighter in best case scenarios, which is like you could also throw one of your 6s in that case. But yeah, this card is usually used as a bait, or if you want to boost some of your cards or run away. This card is mostly used for that. Um, it's just kind of an opportunity cost if you use this, because you could attack with something else like one of your 6s or reprogram, which we will talk about later. And this card will basically just do nothing. You could also maneuver and draw more cards, be a bit more stable, and run away because you don't really care about fatigue as Winter Soldier, as we will see. But yeah, don't think this card is great. However, this does not count secret passageways. So on maps like Basketball Manor or King Solomon's Mine, this card can be funny. Because if you, for example, are on King Solomon's and you're on the bottom right corner blue spot next to the passageways, and your opponent is on the left brownish and blue spot to the other next to the other passageways, this could be an 11 value attack because it doesn't count the passageways as spaces. So it will go all the way around and then can lead to some funny things. So be aware of that on King Solomon's and basketball, but mostly King Solomon's because like on basketball it doesn't really matter because of the zoning. But yeah, just be aware of that. On those maps, this card can be an absolute menace, but otherwise probably also one of the worst. Then next up we have Reflex Memories. It's a 5 value versatile that says star effect. After combat, discard 2 random cards, then draw 2 cards. It has a boost value of 2. So 5 value versatiles are insane. That's holy. That's basically the highest value block we've seen yet in Unmatched. And you could also attack with it. Whoa, it's great. However, in your deck, it's more often than not used on defense because you want to avoid damage as much as possible because you have like better attacks to throw with your sixes or reprogram. And this being a 5 value block, it will negate so much damage that's way more important for Winter Soldier. Also, the effect, since you have to discard 2 random cards, this is optimally used if you only have 0 or 1 card in hand if you play this card. So then you'll discard less cards and then still draw 2. However, this is your only draw on combat cards. And it relies also on discard, so don't really see it as draw. If you need to dig for some defenses and have shit cards in hand, yeah, this is a great card. And it can be used with higher hand sizes as well, because you have uncancelable recursion in your deck, so you don't really care if 1 or 2 good cards get ripped out of your hand. However, if you play this and, for example, you have only 2 defenses in hand, and those 2 are the ones that get random discarded, and then you might not draw any, this card could lead to you just losing the game, so be aware of that. Think about what are the odds. No, don't think that. Look at your hand and say, yeah, is there a way where I could just insta-lose if I play this card and some key cards get discarded? Or anything else like that? However, otherwise, this is probably also one of your best cards because 5 value versatiles are insane. And yeah. Next up, we have Born in the Barracks. It's a 3 value versatile with a boost value of 2 that says, after combat, if you won the combat, Winter Soldier recovers 2 health. Okay, 3 value versatiles are typically good. However, the effect is pretty hard to trigger. This is the healing that I talked about. It's probably one of the hardest heals to trigger in all of Unmatched, to be honest, because winning combat with a 3 value attack or defense is pretty unlikely. 3 value attack, it's pretty obvious why it's not so likely because average block value tends to be a 3, so you probably won't win there. And on defense, since average block value is 3, your opponent will typically attack with something that's higher than that, except if they have like only low value attacks, maybe. Or if it's some kind of bait, then this is great, but otherwise it's also pretty hard to trigger there. And if you don't trigger the effect, this is kind of just a print 3 without effect, which is meh, it's not great. However, this can be combined with item tokens to buff the value. And this is one of the main reasons why Winter Soldier sometimes likes item token maps. Because if you think of it, if your opponent feints your card, it will just remove the item token and the effect of this card will not be cancelled because your effects can't be cancelled. And then you have a 3 value attack over their feint, so you'll win combat and recover 2 health. However, if they don't feint, you probably have a 4 or 5 value attack over their 3 or 4 value block, which will probably also win. So using this together with item tokens can be really good and probably the best use for the card. Otherwise, think of how to trigger this best. Like if you play against someone like Little Red, you know Huntsman has basically almost only 2 value blocks, except if he has knives in basket. Then he can bump it up with stones, but other than that, this will be guaranteed against him. Or if you think about maybe Medusa. Medusa will probably attack with a 3 or lower almost every time except for second shot. So you can pretty reliably throw this into her and then also heal, or even against the harpies. They have hounds, but so since they want to trigger that discard, that's a 3, you might heal from that. So think of it in any matchup. How useful is this card? How is it most likely to trigger? Because I can tell you, if you get even one of those heals off in the game, that can be some massive difference, because otherwise you'll probably just got overwhelmed with their big value attacks and just died before you could do anything else. So even 2 health difference can make or break a game. Next up, we have Wily Fighting. It's a common card we've already seen in other decks. It's a 3-value versatile that says, after combat, deal 1 damage to each opposing fighter adjacent to Winter Soldier with a boost value of 1. So, like I said, 3-value versatiles are typically good. 3-value attacks probably won't deal any damage, but 3-value blocks are like average. It's great. The 1 ping is nice to have, because that's basically your only auto damage in the deck. And it's really good to deal with 1 health sidekicks, because you can play this and then maybe pop multiple of them and just kill them. Also, if you maybe play this into a double attack from whatever Wukong, or maybe if Pat throws it on from Achilles deck and you kill the clone from Wukong or Pat with the after combat, the double attack will also not trigger, so that can be a neat scenario. And yeah, every bit of extra damage is nice to have in your deck. You'll typically use this on defense as well, because you just have better things to attack with. And like I said, Winter Soldier usually dies under pressure, so you basically use everything you have as a defense. And yeah, dealing some damage on your opponent's turn will lead to them not having that much reaction time. If they maneuvered up to you, then attack with something, maybe they didn't expect this, and then take 1 additional damage, and then maybe you have lethal with 1 of your 6s, or even 2 of them if you can play them after another. So that's great. And yeah, just good card overall. Nothing really to complain here. Next up, we have Feint. Typical Feint. We have a 2-value versatile with an immediate effect, hydrate homies, cancel all effects on your opponent's card, boost value of 2. So we've seen Feint in so many other decks. Baked Goods even has made a whole strategy guide video just about Feint, so if you're more interested in the exact details of that card, just look at it. Look at the video. It's a great video, and it got me into Unmatched, so yeah. Otherwise, 2-value versatiles are like meh. On attack, probably won't deal any damage. On defense, it will prevent 2, which is better than nothing, I guess. But Feint is usually just used because of the effect, which is canceling effects. And that's really, really good. Think of it, if you play this into something like a big reveal from Houdini, that will just shut down the whole card, no damage at all. Other way around, if you played a high value block into big reveal, that will probably still get you to take some damage. And if you play this into something like a commanding impact, you will take 3 over the feint, and the effect doesn't really matter. However, if you played something like a 4-value block, skirmish, or whatever into commanding, you just take 1. So the usefulness of this card can vary between matchups. If your opponent is like Bigfoot and only has really high value attacks and you don't really care about the effects, then this is probably one of your worst blocks, because it's only a print 2 and, well, the effects don't really matter. However, if you play against someone like Sinbad, who almost only has 2-value attacks with his voyages and only 1 commanding, that can punish you once and then it's basically gone, then this is probably one of your best defenses in the whole game. So this card is pretty interesting, especially in Winter Soldier's case, because remember, you can recur this with free program, as we'll see later. So that kind of makes you to have infinite feints, but otherwise you can also think, how useful is it in the matchup? Against Sinbad, for example, you probably always recur this, because, yeah, it's great. Or against someone like Little Red, where you really don't want to mess with the effects. But against the rest, they're probably better cards if there's like nothing you're really concerned about with effects. So this is kind of mixed bag. It can, just like I said, it can vary between matchups. Um, Use this on either offense or defense, depending on the matchup. Against someone like Sinbad, I'm doing the Sinbad just because it's Sinbad. It's one of the easiest examples, lol. And you'll probably always defend with this because it can just shut down his voyages easily. However, you could also play this on offense if your opponent has like some auto damage on their defense card and you don't want to mess with that. You might just attack with it or anything else. Who knows? If you're scared about them getting to move. So, for example, if you attack Bigfoot and you're afraid of him playing a hoax and then pinning you and then just beating you to death, then you maybe throw a feint because then, yeah, with your 6 you would have dealt 2 damage, but then you probably would have lost the game because you gave him card draw or even more movement. But if you throw this, he will not be able to move and will probably feel a bit bad. So think about it where you want to use it. It's a good card, but sometimes it will just be meh. Because like I said, the defense will usually lead to you taking damage, and on offense it can cancel some key effects as well, but it depends on the matchup. Next up we have Reprogram. It's a 2-value versatile with a boost value of 2 that says after combat choose 3 cards in your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. Well, this is just the card that makes or breaks your game, probably. Because 2-value versatiles are meh. They're, like I said, won't really deal any damage, will not prevent much damage, but that's not the point of this card. The effect is recursion that can't be cancelled. We've already seen how annoying recursion can be sometimes against Daredevil. If you're not able to stop the Devil cycling, he will have a infinite amount of cards and an infinite deck and will never go to fatigue, basically. So you could just run away, run away, run away, and that's it. However, against the Daredevil, you can do something against that. You can maybe feint the last devil. He will probably have to blind boost sometimes, or even take an evil discard from the top of his deck. So you can play around that. With Winter Soldier, this is guaranteed because you can't feint it. You don't have any top deck discards. The only thing you have is Reflex Memories that will discard 2 random cards from your hand, and you probably won't use that if your only cards are the last 3 programs. So this is just infinite recursion, but it's an opportunity cost to use this card, just like with Marksman, because if you attack with it, you could have attacked with something like your 6 to keep up pressure. So you won't deal any damage, and your opponent will just have more time to breathe and won't lead to much else. If you defend with this, you'll usually take a lot of damage because it's kinda just a blank 2 defense without any effect. So this card it's really hard to know when to play this. You probably want to use it if there is some key card you really need back. For example, if you played both of your healing cards and you know your opponent can't block for higher than 2 anymore, and you just desperately need that heal because otherwise you'll just die from the next attack. Yeah, you just throw this and hope you draw the heal next. But other than that, you probably use this when you have high hand advantage or feel pretty confident with your other cards. You have multiple options. I would not just use this because you think, yeah, getting 3 cards back, yeah, I don't mind taking some damage for that later. You really do mind because Winter Soldier, like I said, doesn't have any good healing, and your blocks are like, they can vary. And yeah, you just what you recur with this card is interesting. You could recur something like your 6s if you want to deal some more damage and pressure your opponent down, which can be your game plan. You can recur feints to cancel their effects. You can recur wilies if you're up against many one-half sidekicks that kind of annoy you. It's really interesting what you do with this card. Usually you want to have at least one of them still in your deck, so you'll probably recur one reprogram every single time, and then the other two cards are always up to choice. If you want to go safe, you just get something like 1/6 and one good block, like complete the mission, which we'll get to next. And otherwise, if you really need some defenses, get some defense. If you need attacking power, get some of them. Just decide on the situation. And what your typical game plan as Winter Soldier tends to be. You have many bad cards with something like Program to Kill or Marksman that are basically just useless. You almost never play them, they're dead cards in your deck, and you'd rather draw something else. You boost those away and try to get a 20 card deck with only your good cards. So you get all of those out of the way ASAP. You draw through your deck like a maniac at the start. Try to get those away and then just recycle the good stuff with reprogram. So your deck kind of becomes an 80 to 20, 18 to 20 card deck, but then it's only the good cards. And that's the point where Winter Soldier starts to shine because everything will probably be of some kind of use to you, and then you also feel a bit more confident to take more risks because you know, yeah, the next few cards won't be such bullshit. So I'll probably get to use them. And yeah, next up we have a 3 value block being complete the mission, and it says during combat you may boost this card. After combat, deal damage to the opposing fighter equal to the amount of damage you took. Has a boost value of 2. Okay, 3 value blocks are good. Just average block value, really good, nothing to complain about. Um, Being able to boost this card is great. This can lead to upwards of a 6 value block because your highest boost value is 3 on both of your schemes that we'll get to next. Otherwise, your boosts are only 2s and 1s. But still, this is the card that I said, like, you want to boost this with your bad cards. Yeah, Marksman will get this up to a 4, and you don't mind losing that card because it's just bad. Program to Kill will get this up to a 5, and you also don't mind losing that card because those are just utter garbage. So normally you would probably feel like, man, do I really want to boost with a card just to mitigate 1 damage? In Winter Soldier's case, yes. Most of the time, yes. Just you don't really care about those shit cards. They will just pump up your hand and be useless. You'd rather not take damage. However, in some cases, in some matchups, the Golden Bat one is just comes to mind for me. You don't want to boost this at all, and you'd rather have you both take 2, 3, or 4 damage because in some matchups you just want to aggro your opponent down because you have so big value attacks. Usually you will deal more damage with your attacks than your opponent will, so any damage that you can get on defense, because this is split equally, will probably get in your favor more than your opponent's. In Golden Bat's case, he only basically has the 2/5 value defenses, and then the rest is kind of bad, except for Skirmish. But he, I think, uses that on offense more often than not. In this matchup, maybe not, but still, he also has no healing, but so you'll just throw your 6s into him. If he attacked with his super strength, you would probably rather both take 4, and then yeah, you're fine with that. So always decide based on your opponent what your game plan is, what the game state is. If you just want to aggro your opponent down and know, yeah, 2 or 3 of my 6s are lethal, yeah, you might just take the damage and have them take as well, because they probably can't do anything else after their attack because they maneuvered and attacked you, so they don't have any actions left. And then you can just punish them because they took unexpected damage that they might not have wanted to take on their own turn, which they didn't expect, and then you can punish them with some big 6s in the face. Or you could just block this up to a 6. Maybe they expected to deal some damage with their lock and then finish you with something like a Jackalope Horns. But then you say, nah, this is a 6 value block. I don't take anything. So yeah, this is also probably one of your best cards in a matchup, in any matchup. So yeah, just decide on what your game plan is. And that's probably next to program recursion, it's probably one of the things that really defines a good Winter Soldier player, knowing what to do in which situation, how to play, being aggressive with taking damage with this card or just running away and boosting. So yeah. Next up we have Manipulation. The first scheme in your deck has a boost value of 3 and it says draw until you have 5 cards in hand. Star effect, each opponent may draw until they have 5 cards in their hand. Okay, so this is your only real card draw in your deck, because to be honest, Reflex Memories, it's still great to draw the 2, because you don't really care as much to discard 2, because you can just infinite recur, but it's still not that good for hand advantage, because you'll discard 2 and then draw 2 most of the cases. So this is your only real card that will increase your hand size, and it's great to have that on a scheme because you don't rely on combat for that. You can always play it on your turn. And yeah, it's also great to keep up pressure or even withstand it. If you get aggroed down by someone like Raptors and you're almost this is your last card in hand, you can play this and then you'll draw 5 cards, which is ridiculous. That's really, really good. Also, if you want to be on the aggressive side and you played your last card on first action as attack, and then you play this after and also draw 5, and your opponent didn't expect that, and it's also really, really good. However, your opponent's being able to draw as well kinda destroys that. Because if you want to be aggressive, you probably want to have hand advantage and just attack and attack and attack. So you'll aggro them down, then use this to draw 5 again. But then they will also be able to draw until they have 5 cards in hand. So you'll just be even again, which in most cases will lead to them getting hand advantage faster than you because you played this as an action on your turn. So you have one less, so you will probably maneuver once again, and then it's their turn, and they can maneuver twice, get up to 7, you're at 6. Bam, they have hand advantage, so you'll probably have to run away again. Or even they might just attack you with something that draws them cards, maybe a snipe or anything else. Because, like I said, you only have card draw on reflex memories, and that also discards you 2 cards, so you'll not get hand advantage with that. So any draw your opponent has on their cards will lead to them getting hand advantage. And that's really key for Winter Soldier, because you don't have any way to escape pins, you don't have any other draw, so hand advantage matters so much. If your opponent is able to just pressure you down, then it's basically game over for you, to be honest. Because then you won't have any good time to play reprogram, shuffle your cards back, you'll run through your deck like a maniac in search of 1 or 2 block cards, and then you'll just die. However, if you can stabilize, then this card is really good. So what I tend to do is to combine this with the other scheme, a boy named Bucky. And we'll just get to that here. It is a scheme for Winter Soldier, of course, with a 3 boost as well, and says ignore any star effects on your cards for the rest of your turn. Gain an action. Okay, so ignoring the bad effects is nice, but not crucial most of the times. Because we've seen on Without Remorse, it's 1 draw for the opponent. It's not great, but also not the end of the world. On Bionic Arm, it's 5 movement for each of them, which is probably one of the best things you can do with this card to deny that, because then that just becomes a Prince 6 without any downsides, basically. On Reflex, it's the discard and then draw, but I think in that case you'd rather just discard 2 and draw 2 again most of the time. So I think canceling the star effects most of the time is not really that important. Um, However, the action gain later is great. It can lead to you still getting double attacks and then using your cards to their fullest potential. But yeah, it's often still not used for the effect, but rather to boost up complete the mission to get that to a 6, because I don't think you will often use manipulation to boost. So yeah. However, this is just, like I said, it's probably best used if combined with manipulation, because if you think about it, you have 3 cards in hand, manipulation, this, and something else. If you just play manipulation right now, you would play it, you have 2 cards left in hand, you would draw 3, and each opponent would also draw, which is, it's okay, but it's not great. However, if you play this first, then you will have only 2 cards in hand, which is manipulation, the other one. Then you can play manipulation, you will draw 4, and your opponents won't draw at all. So this can kinda technically lower your hand size, which will lead to more draw through manipulation, which is really good because you don't care about so much draw, because you'll just recur anyways later. And having more options and not a basically dead combat card in a scheme in hand, it's really good for you. And denying your opponents the draw as well will probably lead to you having hand advantage. So you have more options, you have more freedom, you probably will control the tempo of the game in the next few turns. So that's probably the best use for this card. Otherwise, it's probably only used if you're like really worried about their movement. If you want to play Bionic Arm and you don't want them to move at all because yeah, you have not so great block cards, or you want to deny them the draw on Without Remorse for some reason, whatever. Or even you want to attack with reflex memory, so it's just like ha, it would still be a 5 value attack, which is really good, but I think on that card, most of the time you're actually happy to draw the 2. So yeah, these 2 cards just go hand in hand. They're really good if combined together to deny your opponent the draw, artificially lowering your hand size so you draw more and just controlling the tempo. Alright, so in conclusion, this is probably my largest conclusion page because like Winter Soldier is really complex, even though it doesn't seem like it from the start. Winter Soldier is interesting. Your game plan, you don't really have a game plan in every single match from the start on. It can vary throughout the game so much, probably way more than in any other fighter, because you have two totally different playstyles. You can either go for extreme aggression with your 6s, taking the bunch of damage with complete mission, also dealing it back to your opponent, just aggroing them down, or you just run away and play nasty fatigue because you basically have infinite cards. So it's really interesting to know when to play which playstyle, when to push the switch maybe, because you usually start with being aggressive, so your opponent doesn't have good time getting their hand up because you'll just deal much damage and then they maybe don't feel as confident attacking you, leading to you not taking as much damage. And then later, when it's a bit too late for them to actually go aggressive on you, you run away the whole game and then just attack with reprogram once or twice, which will probably lead to you having a higher deck size and then you win in fatigue. So, since your deck has such a wide span in regards of the usefulness of your cards, it can often lead to some bad game states. What I mean by that is like you might just only draw Program to Kill or Marksman or Boy Named Bucky or anything else that's kind of just a dead card in your hand. And since your deck is like you only have really, really, really good cards or extremely bad cards, that can lead to some hands where you just can't do anything. It's still not as bad because you could just run away and then end of turn discard the bad cards. But If you have like six cards in hand, you plan to get some good ones, but now you only have shit in hand because your deck has so much shit, then your opponent might just double attack you and you just die. So I think aggressing at the start is really crucial for you to kind of get your opponent a bit low on health, worrying, yeah, maybe he has good stuff, otherwise he wouldn't go so aggressive, and then they're maybe a bit afraid to go and counterattack, even though they could. And then later you can get rid of those bad cards and just play a nasty fatigue game. Um, it's just like I said on the reprogram page, get rid of the bad stuff ASAP, then recur the good ones. And if you manage to get that in a kind of stable position where you aggressed at the start, got rid of your bad cards, and then only have the good stuff left, and then can run away or be sure to draw anything useful every time, then you probably become one of the strongest fighters in Unmatched, because if you think of it, you have kinda two 5 value blocks, you have three 6 value blocks with complete the mission, you have infinite recursion, so you don't really care about the random discards or the boosting, and then you probably won't die anymore. The only real problem you have is the lack of card draw, the lack of movement effects, and having so many bad cards. Those combined can lead to you losing a game on point, or if you don't draw them or get rid of them ASAP, it can lead to you just winning a game without even playing the game. That's just how I could describe it. So yeah, knowing when to do which playstyle will kind of see if you are a good Winter Soldier player or just average or maybe even bad, because I wouldn't consider myself a good Winter Soldier player. He's just really hard to play, really hard to know when to actually play which game, and yeah, it's it's really interesting. Next up, we'll get to the Winter Soldier card tier list. Yeah, you know the sentence. It's always dependent on the matchup. Like we'll see in B tier, those cards are still great. However, I would like to clarify everything in this tier list from S, A, and B tier are really good cards. Those are probably the cards you want to keep in your hand and recur with reprogram, and those are the ones where you decide. C and D tier are the ones where you just don't care. You discard them, you boost with them, you do anything with them, but not really play them, except for like Boy and Bucky and combined with manipulation, but that's one case. So yeah, we'll start with D tier. It's a program to kill and marksman. I think it's pretty obvious those are just really bad. You'd rather attack with anything else. You don't want to take self damage, and they're just awful. Point and Bucky in C tier, just really useful for manipulation. Rest is not really worth it. B tier, Wily and Faint, just some good cards. Of course, in some matchups, they can really bump up to S tier if you're up against Robin, for example, and you're really worried about the Outlaws and Highway Robbery, because in that matchup, both of those cards are really, really good. Your effects can't be cancelled, so Wily will always kill the Outlaws. Canceling their effects will always deny their Robbery 2 damage. And yeah, they are just really, really good in that case. However, in some matchups, they are also like only a print 2 value block that does nothing else, almost, or a print 3 that also does not much else, because against ranged fighters, for example, Wily probably won't deal any damage because they usually won't be adjacent to you, and then it's just print 3 and meh. In A tier, we have Bionic Arm. 6 value attacks are great. However, the movement after combat for your opponent can sometimes break your game. But I think if you know what you have, you can really think about the situation. Is it that problematic to play it? And when you know, nah, it's not, I have enough options to play around, then it's still a great 6 value card. So yeah, reprogram, kind of opportunity cost to play it, but if you just like Bionic Arm, if you know when to play it, it's probably one of your best cards because this is what gives you the infinite recursion. And yeah, then top of A tier I have Born in the Barracks, your heal. This is also a candidate where it might fall down to B tier in some matchups because you just won't trigger it. In others, it will be S tier because you'll trigger it 2 or 3 times a game. It's just really depending on your knowledge of the game, of your opponent's deck, what they already played, how you want to use this card optimally. So I just wanted to put it in A tier because it's still a good card. If you get it off even once a game, that can just make a huge difference. So yeah, I don't think it deserves anything lower. And then in S tier, those are like your prime best cards that are like always good, basically. Without remorse, 6 value attack, just print it. It's not with any movement after combat where it will get you pinned. It's just one draw for your opponent, which can be bad sometimes because they will have an advantage and just pressure you down. But one card is like not the end of the world, and in trade for a 6 value attack, it's usually worth it. Um, Reflex Memories, print 5 block. I don't know what I have to say else. That's just great card. You don't really care about the discard as much as Winter Soldier, and you can even use it to net some cards if you're on low hand size, and then you draw 2 and feel fine because you didn't have to discard any and also draw it. And then Manipulation, talked about it. Being able to kind of reset hands in a way is really good because then you have more options to play around. You probably can withstand their pressure even more and then survive, which is like your key objective as with Soldier. And then complete the mission is just oh, it's such a good card. You have so many options with it. Being able to boost this up to a 6 value block is massive. Being able to deal some huge auto damage to your opponent on your turn on their turn is also extremely good. That's just probably the best card in your deck in my opinion. If you can use those top 4 cards perfectly and kind of recycle them with reprogram, giving to the game state, you'll probably have a good time. So next up we have the matchups. Like always, this year this is only based on personal experiences, so feel free to disagree. And this time, big thanks to Floam for helping me, making this as accurate as possible. Talked about with him about some of these, and he helped me much understanding kind of how Winter Soldier operates, what he wants to do, what are his weaknesses, what are his strengths, and what he just tends to do in any matchup. So you'll see a trend with Winter Soldier being really bad against hyper aggressive fighters. Like you see Raptors, Houdini, T-Rex, Bullseye, Bruce Lee, just Tesla. They'll just shred you down before you can really stabilize with your reprograms, get a good deck, and then run away. They will just kill you before that because you don't have any time to do any of your stuff because you don't have any draw and you'll just die. However, anyone that plays a long-oriented value game, you're probably really good against them. We see someone like Sherlock in even, we see She-Hulk in even, we see even Strange in even, and someone like Medusa in favorite or Wukong even as free win because those will probably not have the burst damage to really kill you and you'll just outlast them. What you also don't like as Winter Soldier are big value attacks. For example, we have Alice or Achilles in slightly bad. So not just aggression, if they can just hit over your blocks and still kill you with that, yeah, you're not really fine against that. We also see Daredevil there, the recursion matchup, how I like to call it. It's probably, from my experience, it always plays like this. You really feel good as Winter Soldier 90% of the game, but because you'll only take 1 or 2 damage here and there, and you're fine, but then at some point Daredevil will get one devil too much on you, another 1 or 2 damage, and then you just realize, oh, I'm dead. So yeah, but like I said, who you tend to be good against are everyone that's like that plays a bit more long oriented, that doesn't have as much auto damage in their deck, doesn't have so big value attacks that just kill you over your defense. And yeah, that's the interesting thing with Winter Soldier. You're almost even to every top tier in the meta, and where you crumble are like the high mids or mid tiers. Those are the matchups that you're afraid of. So Winter Soldier in some tournaments can just basically also be top tier in some cases. But yeah, next up we'll look at the maps. This was a kind of tricky one because Winter Soldier doesn't have any maps that he really likes or would rather pick in any matchup. It's not like with Raptors where you always want to pick Raptor Paddock, for example, or anything like that. Um, it's always depending on the matchups because with Winter Soldier against ranged fighters, you usually want melee maps so they don't get to attack you as often because you want to run away and then maybe force them into adjacency because you also have Bionic Arm that cares about adjacency and stuff like that. However, against melee fighters, you want to have a good ranged map because then they won't be able to attack you as often, but you will be able to pressure them a bit more. So you just try to avoid taking damage as much as possible in a given matchup, and denying your opponent of their fighter's strengths is probably more important to you than enhancing your own character, because Winter Soldier doesn't have any big thing that he wants to do, and so he doesn't have any big preferences. However, otherwise, item token maps can be kinda good for him to buff off barracks, and then you'll get some easy heal. It could increase your block power as well. However, because you are a move 2 solo fighter that doesn't have any card draw or movement effects, you don't have much board control, so maybe you get 1 token at the start of the game because you got a good early position, but then the rest of the game, you'll probably run away, and your opponent will be the one to controlling the tempo, and then they get the tokens, and then this can be really bad for you because they will maybe get their +2 attack, and then you'll just take more damage. So it can be good for you if you manage to pull that off, but it's really tricky, and I wouldn't recommend it for new players. Um, so for all these reasons, I will just give one map for every play style instead of the top 3 maps that I tend to do otherwise. If you just know you're gonna play Degen Fatigue, because you probably won't take so much damage, you pick Yukon. If you're playing against anyone that doesn't have the damage to kill you really, or where you can just run away, pick Yukon. If you're playing against some melee fighters that you're a bit afraid of, get on a good ranged map so you have a bit more control over the board, you can attack them more often, you have a bit more options, you go Memorial. If you want to go up against a ranged fighter like Yenenga or anyone else, you just play anti-ranged. You play on something like Hero, where you can close the doors, get additional distance kind of between you and them, force them into adjacency, kind of denying them of their advantage being ranged, and then you will have a better time. So yeah, thank you for watching. Shout out again to Floam for helping me getting familiar with Winter Soldier. And yeah, feel free to write feedback or questions in the comments, and please tell me which character you want me to cover next. I have some in mind, but yeah, we'll see. Until next time.